Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 2, Episode 14, Rapunzel and the Great Tree, because apparently now we're in Harry Potter. So, there's a previously on. That almost weirds me out. It's like they don't have faith that people can pay attention to any of their plot points. So, we quickly see Kieran and Adira, and then we see a new guy, Hector. I'm going to call him obviously evil, or no, hang on. Hector McEvilson. I think that works. So he's evil. Cool. Rapunzel and Cassandra get a day, just the two of them, just for themselves, even though there's 3 other people present. I do like how Cassandra is still competitive here, but okay, that works. We also find out that Cassandra has stopped being as fond of Adira as she used to be, which I'm very in favor of. So, Rapunzel then says, I don't need someone to keep me safe. Cassandra doesn't take that very well. So, okay. That then leads to our first action sequence, one of many. I want to comment on this here, because one of the things I've noticed about the show is there's a lot of action sequences, and that makes sense, because the main producer and writer of this show was an animator for like 25 years before he ended up working on this show. So, I do actually like that. I do like how much emphasis there is on the gameplay axis. It absolutely elevates the show. In fact, just now, during my little watch through, my sister came down briefly to tell me about a few things, and she agreed that even watching just a few seconds, she could tell immediately the level of quality that the animation has, because it's really, really good. But then she was confused because she thought this was the awful show, and then I was confused for a second before I realized, oh no, she meant Donkey Kong Country. So I showed her a bit of that. Her expression was adorable. Anyways, so let's see here. So there's a chase scene. There's a giant rhino. The caravan apparently splits in 2. Would have been useful a couple of times. Good toy opportunity. Always got to push the merch. And then Adira says, I see you've gotten yourself into another situation from which I must rescue you. I know this show has an asshole quota that is in almost every single episode. I was legitimately hoping Adira would die in this episode. That's not a joke. I'm not just saying that in like the generic way. I mean, that would have been something I would have actually enjoyed. Instead, she lives, and that sucks. Because I really do not like Adira. Yeah, no, exactly. Hector isn't an asshole. Did you catch that? He's evil, and a zealot, and he's more than willing to kill people. But Adira is just an asshole. Okay. I'm sure that Rapunzel will reach out to her and teach her the true magic of friendship. I hate Smug. I hate Smug. So, I'm sorry. So Mr. Red was sharing a few, I think he shared some of these on stream as well. A few things that make her evil. I could just picture Adira being the kind of person who would somehow manage to be an asshole even while going through like a Wendy's drive-thru, you know? Yes, hi. Yes, thank you. I did come here because I'm trying to order some food. I don't think that's asking too much, since it's not like you have to do much other than push a couple of buttons. Now, are you ready to take my order? Yes, ma'am, that's what I asked. Good, because I don't really feel like waiting any longer until you're finally ready to actually take my order. You realize I'm an important person, right? And I have places to be and things to do. Yes, sir. That's why I'm here, ready to take your order so you can go through the drive-thru. Well, that's good, because I haven't decided what I want yet. So now I'm going to need you to wait a little bit. Can you be a little patient with me, please, so I can decide what I want? By the way, this is almost verbatim an actual conversation that happened to me. That's why I messed up and called her sir for a second. I used to run the drive-thru at Arby's when I was the manager there. But I can picture her being like that. I really can. I absolutely can picture this. So, she's a dick. Cool. They lose the caravan again. Cool. And now Cassandra is pushing against Adira. Cool. I like all of this. They even find out that this is apparently this guy's home turf. That he just lives in this evil tree. What a video game villain, right? Like, this is the tree stage, and now they have to fight the boss who happens to be in this stage. I'm not even mad. I just think that's funny. So, during the race, Cassandra had a moment, and then during the thing where Rapunzel said she doesn't need her support to be a bodyguard, that's a moment. And then she decides to take Adira's advice over Cassandra's. That's 3 strikes so far. We find out this used to be the Dree of Zantiri, more of the battle between Demanitus and Zantiri in the past affecting the modern day. That's pretty common in stories like these. That's actually true in MLP. But it's a common thing for these kind of more fantasy-y stories to have some kind of big battle that still has impacts that we're still feeling to this day. Either because that's logical or because that's what Tolkien did, and so everyone does it because Tolkien did it. It works here. We see the echoes of that conflict everywhere. So, cool. And as she's giving out this whole thing about, oh, yes, this is this thing, but don't worry, the tree's been purged, so it's totally safe. Besides, I'm here. She can't stop being so smug. God damn it. So Adira pokes the lading and waiting button. I thought you were her servant. And that's pretty much officially the line for me. I've already called Adira a Mary Sue. Now, she's not a Mary Sue in this episode. Because remember, one of the traits of a Mary Sue is that the universe warps around them. And not only makes them correct, but also everyone loves them. In this case, she's just a smug asshole. But the moment you're a smug asshole to Cassandra, for no good reason, by the way, is the moment that you've officially and 100% lost me. What are you doing? Now, put a pin in that. Remember that for me, okay? So, we move forward a little bit. It feels like an invalid button hit. It feels like the kind of thing that Cassandra should shrug off, because we've spent a season and a half establishing her bond with Cassandra. The two of them are close enough to have nicknames for each other, Cass and Raps, and their friendship is really close and really tight. We also know that Lance is an asshole. We're just going to ignore that for a second. Let's see here. Scroll down a little bit here. So Eugene, Max, Pascal, and Lance are all split. That's a fantastic idea. And an evil magic tree. Cool. They see the healing incantation, which probably came from here. Then the flower gasses them. That's a terrible idea. And then there's the buddy song. I didn't like the buddy song. But I want to try and explain why, rather than just saying that. So first and foremost, this is a Disney-mandated drug trip sequence. We actually haven't seen one of those in quite a while. It's so, sorry, it's probably so old that I imagine some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. There used to be this thing, it actually goes all the way back to Snow White, where virtually every major Disney film had to have at least one mandatory drug trip sequence. This was common for a really long time. I don't really know why this was a thing, but it was. Yeah, the Dumbo drug trip one is probably one of the more well-known ones, if you're familiar with it. You know, Elephants on Parade. And like I said, it's common, and it's a whole thing across a long time. Aristocats had it. Peter Pan had it. Like virtually every single one of those has at least one moment where everyone just goes trippy and things get weird and clashy and awful, and it's this whole thing, right? But then they stopped doing that. Little Mermaid still had it, but I think Little Mermaid might have been one of the last ones to really include the mandated drug trip sequence, because that started the Renaissance, and then that was new people involved in the studio and new direction and new approach. I talked about that during the Disney Rumination. So they kind of stopped doing that, which leads us to here, because this is totally one of those. But that's not why I don't like it. It's part of why I don't like it, but it is one of the reasons I don't like it. No, you poor unfortunate souls, actually, Lord Hermon. Pretty much that entire sequence, actually. Yeah, it was very necessarily mild. Remember, this is a show that was going up on Fox Kids back when that station still existed. So, okay, that's cool. Then there's the song itself. I just don't care for the song itself. Okay, that's just personal preference, and I'm just going to walk away from that immediately. But then I realized the other weird thing I didn't like about the song. It's a song for its own sake. Usually, the kind of... I'm admittedly pickier about this, and again, that's a personal preference thing. But if you're going to use a musical number, it needs to do something. It's actually one of the rules of musicals, is that a musical number needs to move things forward. It needs to be character-centric. It needs to be... the next song, it needs to be character-centric. It needs to be plot-relevant. It needs to move the story forward. It needs to be part of the story. The word everyone likes to use nowadays is diegetic. So it needs to be diegetic, right? It needs to be something that actually is happening in universe in a way that informs. And instead, it's just these two talking about how much they like each other. And that's neat, but they're also on drugs the whole time. And there's a flower trying to eat them. And that's kind of it, right? Like, that's really all there is to it. Then Rapunzel starts singing the reverse incantation song, and her hair goes black and her eyes go black, and that's the end of the first part. In my actual notes, all I actually said was, okay. So, you caught my attention there. And then, thankfully, Max and Pascal show up to save Eugene and Lance. Thank God for that. Not something I say very often. But then Max gets hit by the flower. And you know, that makes perfect sense. Little pro tip for those of you who like to play video games or Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that. Never let your barbarian have to make the will save. So instead, Pascal has to actually rescue them. Did you notice how close they all came to dying horribly? And if not for Pascal, they would have actually died. Just straight up died right then and there. I don't want to negatively talk about this episode, but the pacing of it's kind of weird. The parts where things go by a little bit too quickly, and the parts where they sit for a moment take too long. It feels like they weren't sure how much time any given sequence should be given. And this is a good example of that. Like, it's just, oh yeah, and they're all fine. What? It's just resolved. They did an entire song about this. It's just resolved. Practically off camera. Okay. But then, Rapunzel is still singing in it. Of course, it takes Adira to make it stop. But that's okay. Cassandra gives Rapunzel a hug. Yay! And Rapunzel says, thank God you were here, Adira. So that's strike like 5, I think, at this point for Cassandra. Adira is, of course, still awful and smug and terrible. And finally, Cassandra just straight up pushes back against this. Cassandra straight up says, this is sus. And she's right. We're all trusting Adira too much. She's right. This could be a trap. She's right. We need to go ahead and push through with this because this is a dangerous area. And honestly, she was probably right about that one too. Things did work out, but they came close to not working out. Like really close to not working out. Cassandra was right here. The episode bothers to show that too. Rapunzel, yeah, more or less literally by a hair's breadth. Rapunzel makes all the wrong calls here. And not only does she actually go out of her way to say that she agrees with Adira, which is already something that bothers me, but then she straight up yells at Cassandra over this. I don't think that works for me. The way this is framed and constructed is pretty much the exact same format they used back in The Secret Forest. Remember that? In other words, there, Eugene was being obviously and ridiculously in over his ego because Adira is, of course, correct. But the way they're doing it here is that Cassandra is obviously just wrong and in it for the ego, and she just has some kind of a grudge against Adira. Of course, Adira is correct, and it's the same overall approach, but now it's being played for drama rather than for anything else. My knee-jerk first thought was actually that something about that spell and the black hair left a lingering effect. Now, the episode didn't follow through on that, but that was literally my very first thought. It was just, okay. And yeah, everyone's expressions is kind of with me on this one. Like, whoa there. Sandra's response? Yes, Your Highness. Now, I don't want to dig onto this point too much, because this still works, but only kind of. I feel like there's just the framing of this is trying a little bit too hard to push a wedge in between Rapunzel and Cassandra. And I know what you're thinking. Well, but there is a wedge there. But there's also like a lot of friendship and connection going on. So this is strange. Because it feels like it's trying to do it both ways. It's trying to invert and explode at the exact same time. And so what's happening seems to depend on each individual scene. And yeah, maybe this is just being played for melodrama. Maybe some people were literally not talking to each other in the writer's room. This is a strange sequence, and it's not like either side is bad, it's the fact that it bounces back and forth that kind of throws me. Then we see a really good scene. Rapunzel, which I didn't even recognize at first, with the brown hair, and one of the first times she ever met Cassandra. And, you know, your highness, and, you know, talking to her, and, hey, I got you a bag to help carry things, and blah, blah, blah. It's a good scene. It's a good scene. And she mentions, I've never seen Cass act like this before. I hate to keep pointing out how much the episode is focusing on Cassandra here, because the instigator of all this is so obviously and clearly Adira. But let's move past that for a second. Because, well, Adira is not helping. The episode wants to make it clear that there's some drama going on between Cassandra and Rapunzel. And the problem is, if that's true, this is the first time they've shown it. They have been getting closer over the course of season 2, not farther apart. And this is just kind of... She even says a line, since when did you stop trusting my judgment? She's been trusting your judgment for, like, what, 14 episodes in a row now. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Now, having said that, there is a line I really, really like. Rapunzel says, and I quote, someday I'm going to be queen. Good voice acting, by the way. You can tell the weight of it there. And I will make decisions you don't agree with. And I need you to be okay with that. Yeah, no, that's legit. Sometimes she's going to make the wrong calls, and she needs Cassandra to still have her back even when she does that. Even when she pushes back against that. That's good. And it seems to be a good moment for the two. Then Cassandra gets her own song. Finally, by the way. But, well, the song goes back to what I was just talking about. We just had a heartwarming, touching scene where Rapunzel says all the right things and reaches out to her and says, please, I need you here at my side. I trust you. We've got this. And then she goes off and talks about how much she feels like she's outshined, how she's never going to get any glory or personal anything, and how she's constantly in waiting. This is a very well-sung song that I just don't buy. This is a song that should have happened back in season 1. And would have been a really good song back in season 1. Yeah, it feels like season 1 Cass. But we've moved past that at this point. Like, I'm sorry, this doesn't work here. And I actually legitimately wonder if that's what happened, if this was written. Because songs in shows like these are almost always written, like, independent of the episode, right? Or independent's the wrong word, but, like, you're told, hey, we need a song. You go to the songwriters, which is a separate group of writers, and say, here's the circumstances, here's the beginning point, here's the end point, here's some of the beats, here's who your singers are. And they write the song. And so it's possible there really was a miscommunication somewhere, and this just kind of got slotted in here, because they didn't slot it in at episode 1. And by episode 1, I mean season 1. Sorry. It's a good song, and it's well sung, but it's just... I also have to point out that I can't be the only one who notices that Cassandra's like, oh, I'm never going to get my chance. You realize that she's, like, primo positioned to be the new High General of Corona, right? Like, she's going to take over the Royal Guard, almost guaranteed. She's pretty much got that slot. And she very much strikes me as a lead from the front kind of a person, too. I hate to point out the fundamentals of the situation, but I don't see what she's on about. Not at this point. That's my point, is that this feels like Season 1 Cassandra instead of Season 2 Cassandra. Anyways. So, then Hector shows up and just dwarfs Cassandra in one shot. Did you notice that it was literally one shot, by the way? We find out that the Moonstone has the power to destroy the world. Okay. And then there's a fight, and there's a fight, and there's a fight. Hector and Adira fight. It's actually a pretty cool fight. Again, all the action sequences are pretty good. I have pretty much nothing to complain about there. But then Cassandra goes to fight Hector. I've been wondering something this whole time. Why are Adira and Hector just so much higher level than anyone else? Don't mistake me. That's fine. But, like, why? I don't think they've ever thought about it. They just wanted them to be higher level. Either way, Cassandra goes to fight him. Yeah, because the Brotherhood. Okay. And she does actually successfully take down Hector. He lives for some stupid reason. Takes the spear that kept the demon sealed because he's a moron. By the way, green glow again. We've seen that before. And okay. So now we have phase 2 of our boss fight. I'm telling you, this whole episode's a video game. So Rapunzel and Cass do seem to be doing some good mending of fences in mid-combat. Like, there's some good things going on there. Lots of action going on. The tree is winning. Rapunzel decides, I'm going to use the incantation. Cassandra says, no, trust me, instead. She's already pointed out and noticed that the spear works against this thing, which is something they already knew because they were told it earlier. So Cassandra's like, give me a chance. And Rapunzel says, no. Rapunzel goes her way. And they get lucky, which they do. And Cassandra's hand gets rather unpleasanted. We don't even know exactly what happened to her. Cute. I do like how it's the injury to Cassandra that specifically breaks Rapunzel out of it. Like, Rapunzel flat out says, I can't control it until the damage happens to Cassandra. And that's when she's able to pull back from using the reverse incantation. Okay. But for the second time in a row, Cassandra probably was right here. A little bit of more... Like, you cannot tell me that Rapunzel, who's free and also has all her hair, could not have gotten the spear, gotten it to Cassandra, and then cool. Like, all of these things could have lined up and worked out, and instead, she just decided to go with her thing, and she decided not to trust Cassandra. Again. Unfortunately, Adira and Hector live. Whatever, I'm just going to move past that. And Cassandra now has full body armor. She even has a line, which is so quiet, I imagine a lot of you didn't even really catch it. Don't worry, it's not going to happen again. In other words, she just officially decided to stop trusting Rapunzel. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this whole episode doesn't work for me as well as it should. Because it feels like the writers had a defined endpoint here. And that endpoint was Cassandra and Rapunzel need to have a wedge. They need to be split. And I don't think the entire season has done the prep work necessary to make that actually land. This feels very out of nowhere. And so while there are a couple of good moments and we can debate the specifics, this doesn't work for me. This feels artificial. Now, I don't know. I've been trying... I want desperately to know what the hell is actually going on behind the scenes here. I have deliberately gone out of my way and not... I actually have a resource, which, that is to say, I have a bunch of compilated interviews from several of the writers, including Sonnenberg, which I've gone out of my way not to read because I've been informed they are turbo spoilery, and I don't want to be spoiled. But let me tell you, I'm going to read those at some point and find out what in the world is going on with the creation of this show. Who knows? Maybe there's no answers there. Maybe it's just him talking about how big his dick is. I don't know. But I do have a question. So, there are 7 more episodes after this. There's only 2 real possibilities here. We're going full plot for the last 7 episodes. Or those are filler, or at least some of those are filler. We're going back to slice of life. Because this is not only a hell of a sea change, and it's a good, like, dun 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 kind of a moment, and we've got a status quo thing with Cass and the armor, and now Cassandra and Rapunzel are no longer friends, or more accurately, there's now a dividing wedge between them. This would be very, very strange if this then divested back into slice of life. Now, a breather episode can work. You know, we need time to process, that's fine. But I'm looking at some of the upcoming episode names. We'll see. That'll be tomorrow. Because right now, we have to review this. Now, I know everyone's wanting me to say purple. Let me just say this right now. No. Just going to lay that one down. No. I'm actually torn past that point. Because there's some very good action on display. There is some actual plot, some actual world building. There's some pacing issues. I don't buy the drama at all. I think I've made that very clear. We do get some lore stuff, more of Demanitus and Zentiri. Zenkiki? Oh god, I actually don't remember his name. The evil warlock guy, the demon thing. We get 2 songs, which are well-executed songs, even though I think Zentiri, thank you. Oh, even though I think neither of them belong in this episode. We have some really good character moments, ironically, between Rapunzel and Cassandra. We do have a change to the status quo. We have the incantation, which she can't control, and we haven't explained yet. Not that we need to. Is this show coffee? No, this show is Voyager. I've made that very clear. This is a good show, a very good show that should be greater. I'm gonna get stabbed in the chest for this, but I think this is orange. And it really kind of bothers me about that, because I know everyone's gonna say that that's a bad score, and that I'm just gonna have to push back against that for the 7,000th time. But I do think it's a high orange. I absolutely do. There's a lot of really good stuff here. Like there's slices of excellence throughout, kind of surrounded by weird things, and some actual, like, honest to God huhs, but nevertheless, like, just obviously I sound like I'm complaining, but I apologize. I am enjoying this. This was a good episode. This was a damn good episode. That's why I'm thinking orange, actually, very specifically. We'll see. We'll see, I think, where they're taking this. Hi, Jimmy Gamix. Yeah, long week. Tell me about it. Yeah, no, this, like, look at what we've covered today. Where did we start? We started with Freebird, right? So green, orange, green, blue, orange, 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 yellow, red, orange. That's a really good spread right there. That is solid. In fact, where are we at for the season? Season 2 has almost overtaken Season 1, despite the fact that we haven't even covered several episodes yet. Like, that's really doing well for itself. In fact, hang on. So if we get, like, one more orange... Oh, okay. So let's see if we get one more red. That's going to take more than that. So, like, 2 more episodes, maybe? Maybe 4 more episodes. Yeah, so in about... If we get 4 more oranges, this will have overtaken Season 1. And if you don't understand the significance of that, we have 7 episodes left. See, I'd say it's fairly... Unless somehow, magically, they just faceplant hard in these last 7 episodes, I think we're pretty solid for Season 2, knocking it out of the park. I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. I keep saying I don't know, because there's... I don't know what they're doing yet. My analysis brain is staring at this, and what I'm staring at is creator conflict. Let me use a parallel. How many of you remember Ducat in Deep Space Nine? Because that's exactly what this feels like. Not the exact same kind of thing, obviously, but a similar vibe of creators not really agreeing with each other. Like, because one person doesn't decide a character, right? You've got your writer, and you've got your directors, you've got the actors, and you've got the long-term people, you've got the showrunner, you've got the producer, you've got all kinds of people, all of whom all have at least a little bit of say in how a character comes across or how a plot point comes across. And so Dukat was a lot of things across Deep Space Nine, up to and including his death and transformation into Pa Dukat. And so that's why I'm staring at this going, huh? Because that's, yeah, exactly, 040, because Sonnenberg, by all account, was like the guy in charge here. The mainliner, the one completely running the show. So, yeah, no, they actually wanted a Kira Dukat romance, and the actors had to actually stamp their foot down hard on that and be like, no, absolutely not. 0% chance, no. Like, that's what I mean when I say creator conflict, because everyone has their own vision for where a specific thing should go. And I don't know if this is Sonnenberg just being schizophrenic or not being able to make up his own mind or wanting his cake and eating it too, because it feels like they want Cassandra and Rapunzel to have this big, like, drama thing between each other, but they also want them to be this at the exact same time. Now, that can work. It's actually possible to have two rivals who are very, very close. When they're well written, Xavier and Lehenshire are two excellent examples of that. I'm sorry, Professor X and Magneto is a good example of that. And I can't think of another one off the top of my head. It's pretty rare because it's hard to pull off. You have to have a very strong amount of mutual respect and care and consideration. You know what? I actually have another example here. Optimus and Megatron, when they're written well, actually qualify as well. But that makes a weird amount of sense, Nero's ass. The other example I was going to use, this is going to sound weird, Dr. Light and Dr. Wily. Not in the games, obviously, but in the Archie comics, where they really, really flesh out the world, the characters, and the setting of Mega Man. And in those comics, Dr. Wily is A, not evil, and B, very friendly with Dr. Thomas Light, his rival. And the two of them have this kind of dynamic going on. You know, it's a similar concept. Anyways, this is all just me spitballing. Maybe I'm just trying to find a pattern where there isn't one, like we saw in the previous episode. Maybe they were just feeling under the gun and didn't have the polish needed for whatever it is they were going for. And that's why it feels inconsistent, was because the show just wasn't getting the support it needed. That's entirely possible too. It's possible there's nothing going on here. And it's just whatever, right? But it's been bugging me like this whole episode. And I don't know, this whole season, Ross points out an interesting thing too. Eugene has definitely been fading into the background. And Cassandra has been getting some limelight too. Not that I mind, because Lord knows she didn't get a lot of limelight back in season 1, ironically. But, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. But not tonight. I need to go have dinner and then do some paperwork. Tomorrow, at Season 2, Episode 15, we will continue with The Brothers Hook, which hopefully has absolutely nothing to do with the piano player I can't think of the name of, and the Hookfoot guy. I can't think of Hookfoot's name for some reason. I don't know if